Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload. The morning began like any other. The alarm buzzed, the smell of coffee drifted faintly through the house, and I was already buttoning my shirt when she appeared in the doorway, wrapped in her robe, a hand pressed to her forehead. Her voice was low, tired, a little too deliberate. "I don't think I can make it in today, my head's pounding." I paused, searching her face. She didn't look pale. Her eyes didn't carry the heavy weight of fever or pain. Still, I nodded, leaned in, and kissed her cheek. "Stay home, rest. I'll check on you later." She gave a weak smile, the kind that asked not to be questioned, and patted back toward the bedroom. Driving to the office, I tried to push the unease aside. Maybe she really was sick, maybe stress had caught up with her, but something about the way she'd announced it lingered in my chest. The words had felt rehearsed, like lines read from a script. By noon, I left the office to grab lunch. The city hummed in its usual rhythm, horns, chatter, the clatter of cups from busy sidewalks. I turned down a familiar street, intending to stop at the small deli on the corner. That's when I saw her. Through the wide windows of a cafe sat my wife, her sick day suddenly bathed in sunshine. She was laughing, leaning forward, her hand brushing the arm of the man across from her. He wasn't a stranger. He was someone I'd seen at barbecues, office gatherings, the one she always called just a friend. My steps slowed. The noise of the street faded. I stood there, unseen, watching her animated smile, the sparkle in her eyes that hadn't been aimed at me in months. It wasn't the kind of laughter shared between colleagues. It was lighter, sharper, full of something dangerous. I reached for my phone, my hand trembling slightly, and lifted it. The camera shutter clicked softly. One photo, clear enough to capture the truth. I stared at the image, the two of them frozen mid-laugh, and felt something inside me settle. Not rage, not despair, certainty. I didn't storm inside. I didn't confront her in front of him. I turned, walked back to my car, and drove away. My hands gripped the wheel tightly, but my mind was already ahead of me, crafting what needed to be done. That evening, the house smelled of roasted chicken. She was at the stove, humming, apron tied neatly. When I asked how she was feeling, she smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Better. I just needed rest." I nodded, kissed her cheek again, and said nothing. Dinner was set carefully, as though she was compensating for something. The kids chatted about school, laughing between bites while she smiled and carried on the performance. When the plates were cleared, I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and placed it on the table. The screen lit up with the photo, her laughing with him, caught in a moment she could never explain away. The room fell silent. The kids looked at the picture, then at her. Her fork slipped from her hand, clattering against the plate. Her face went pale, her mouth opening but no words coming out. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. The photo said everything. Her story ended there, not with shouting or accusations, but with the undeniable truth staring back at her, framed in pixels, framed by her own choices. The silence at the table was heavier than anything I'd ever felt. The photo glowed faintly on the screen, its light bouncing off the walls like a spotlight no one could escape. My wife sat frozen, her lips parted, her chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. The kids shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting between us. My daughter was the first to speak. "Mom, what is that?" Her voice was soft, hesitant, but it sliced through the room. My wife blinked quickly, her hands trembling as she reached for the phone. It's nothing," she stammered, trying to laugh. "Just a picture someone must have sent him." I didn't move. "That picture was taken today," I said quietly. "At noon, in a cafe on 5th Street." Her eyes flicked up to mine, wide and frantic. You followed me?" "No," I replied. "I was on my lunch break. I passed by. I saw you." The kids sat in stunned silence, the weight of the moment pressing on them. My son leaned back, his brows furrowed as if trying to understand how the woman who tucked him in every night could look so different in this light. She finally managed a shaky laugh. "It's not what it looks like. He's just a friend. I told you that before." I let her words hang, then calmly swiped the screen. Another photo appeared, her leaning forward, hand on his arm, faces close, eyes locked. The kids gasped softly. "Does that look like just a friend?" I asked, not raising my voice but letting the photo speak louder than I ever could. Her mask cracked. Tears welled in her eyes, sliding down her cheeks. "Please," she whispered. "It wasn't supposed to. It didn't mean anything." I leaned back in my chair, my expression steady. "It meant enough for you to lie. It meant enough for you to call in sick, to sit in front of him while I went to work to keep this family afloat. It meant enough for you to risk everything." The kids pushed their chairs back, uncomfortable, but I stopped them gently. "Stay," I said. "You deserve to hear the truth." She looked at them, her tears flowing freely now. "I made a mistake," she whispered. I just needed someone to talk to. It wasn't what your father thinks." I shook my head slowly. "Mistakes are forgetting to pick up milk. Mistakes are missing an appointment. What you did was a choice." Her sobs grew louder. She buried her face in her hands, but I didn't move to comfort her. The kids stared at the table, their innocence cracked by the reality of betrayal. That night, after they went to bed, the house felt hollow. She stood in the doorway of our bedroom, her voice hoarse. "Please, can we talk, just you and me?" I looked at her, my face unreadable. Tonight I'm done talking." I slept on the couch. The following morning she tried again. She made breakfast, her movements frantic, desperate to recreate normalcy. Pancakes, eggs, coffee, all laid out like offerings. "I'm sorry," she said softly as I entered the kitchen. "It wasn't what it looked like. I swear." I sat down, sipped the coffee and stared at her. "Do you think I'm stupid?" Her eyes widened, fresh tears forming. "No, of course not. I just let things go too far." "Too far?" I said, my tone sharp now. "You lied. You looked our kids in the eye and lied. You risked their respect for what? For a man you call a friend?" She crumbled, sobbing openly now. "Please, I'll end it. I'll block him. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't leave me." But I wasn't thinking of leaving. Not yet. Revenge required patience, and she had no idea the walls were already closing in. That week I visited my lawyer. I handed him the photos, the timeline, the proof of her deceit. He looked at me with quiet sympathy. "You're prepared," he said. "I have to be," I replied. "This isn't just about me. It's about the kids. It's about protecting everything I've built." Together, we laid out the plan. Joint accounts shifted into my name, passwords changed, deeds secured, custody discussions drafted. Step by step, I fortified my world while she stumbled blindly in hers. At home, she tried harder than ever. She cooked, cleaned, showered me with affection, as if smothering me in gestures could erase the photo burned into my mind. She deleted numbers from her phone, but I knew it was too late. Trust, once broken, doesn't regenerate. The kids were quieter around her. They sensed the fracture, the way her words didn't carry weight anymore. My daughter barely looked at her during dinner. My son kept conversations short. They didn't shout, didn't accuse. They just withdrew, the way children do when they don't know how to process disappointment. One night, she cornered me in the living room, her face blotchy, from crying. "Why are you being so cold? Why won't you just forgive me?" I looked at her, my voice calm, steady. "Because you're not sorry you did it. You're sorry you got caught." Her face twisted, the mask gone, the desperation raw. "You're going to ruin everything." I shook my head slowly. "No, you ruined everything. I'm just making sure you can't ruin anything else." The words hit her like a blow. She sank onto the couch, staring at the floor, broken. I walked away, my mind clear. The trap was set. She didn't know it yet, but the end was already written. And soon, she'd discover that the sick day she thought was harmless had cost her everything. The weeks that followed were a strange performance. She kept waking earlier than usual, packing the kids' lunches with meticulous care, ironing my shirts before I even asked, cooking elaborate dinners she hadn't made in years. To anyone on the outside, we looked like the perfect family again. To me, it felt like living in a house of cards, every gesture trembling, every smile forced. But beneath the surface, her panic grew. She thought she could smother the truth with good behavior, as if baking a cake or kissing me at the door would erase the photo still burned into our minds. The kids played along at first, but children have sharper instincts than we give them credit for. They saw her desperation. They felt the shift. The way my daughter barely spoke at the dinner table, or my son's eyes flicking from her to me, measuring the distance that had opened between us. One evening, after the kids went upstairs, she sat across from me at the kitchen table, wringing her hands. "I've been thinking," she began, her voice trembling. "We need a fresh start. Maybe a trip, just the two of us, somewhere far. We can put this behind us." I sipped my coffee, studying her face. "A trip?" "Yes," she said quickly, leaning forward. "Just you and me. No kids, no work. Somewhere quiet where we can remember who we were." Her words were polished, too polished. And then I noticed her phone screen lighting up on the counter. A preview of a message. "Did you talk him into it yet?" My jaw tightened. She wasn't planning a fresh start with me. She was trying to lure me into the last act of her play. An escape, a way to corner me into funding the life she'd been planning all along. I stood, took her phone, and turned it toward her. "Who's this from?" Her face went pale, her lips parting without sound. It's no one." I unlocked the phone, scrolling quickly. Messages from him, dozens of them. Plans disguised as conversations, questions about money, about timing, about leaving soon. Her voice cracked. "I was going to tell you, I didn't know how." I placed the phone on the table between us. "You weren't going to tell me. You were going to drain what was left, then vanish. Same way you called in sick and laughed in a cafe while our kids thought you were home resting." She broke then, sobbing openly, her body shaking. Please don't do this. Don't take everything from me. I can't survive without you." The words might have carried weight once. Now they felt hollow. The next morning, her desperation turned into boldness. While I was in the shower, she tried again, logging into our accounts from her laptop. What she didn't know was that I'd set up alerts for every failed attempt. By the time I stepped out, towel over my shoulders, my phone had pinged twice. She was sitting at the kitchen table, laptop open, eyes wide, caught red-handed. "It was just a mistake," she stammered. "I thought I'd forgotten the password." I didn't argue. I simply opened my own laptop, showed her the security log, every failed attempt time-stamped. Her hands flew to her mouth. "You're done," I said quietly. "This isn't your house anymore. This isn't your life anymore. I've already spoken to a lawyer. Every account is secured, every asset locked. You have nothing left to take." Her sobs grew louder. But the kids had already come downstairs, standing on the staircase, watching. They didn't ask questions. They didn't need to. The truth was written across her face, in her tears, in her trembling hands. By the weekend, she packed her bags. She tried one last time, standing in the doorway with her suitcase. "Please," she whispered. "Think of the kids. Think of everything we had." I looked at her calmly. "I am thinking of the kids. That's why I can't let them grow up watching this kind of betrayal play out every day." She left without another word. The aftermath wasn't dramatic. She drifted from one friend's couch to another, her just a friend vanishing the moment her accounts came up empty. Word spread quietly, through coworkers, through neighbors, until she was left with little more than the echoes of her own choices. For me, life didn't snap back instantly. Trust takes time to rebuild, even with yourself. But the kids and I found a rhythm. We cooked together, laughed again, rediscovered the quiet joy of nights without tension pressing against the walls. Months later, on a Saturday morning, I stumbled across that photo again, the one I'd taken at the cafe. Her smile, his hand, their secret world frozen in time. I stared at it for a moment, then deleted it. Not because I wanted to forget, but because I didn't need it anymore. The revenge was complete. She had destroyed herself, and all I had done was give her the chance to reveal it. In the end, it wasn't anger that stayed with me. It was peace. The knowledge that I hadn't shouted, hadn't begged, hadn't lost myself in her betrayal. I had waited, prepared, and let her own lies collapse on her. Her story ended that night at the dinner table, when our kids saw the truth with their own eyes. Everything after was just the fallout. And every time I wake up to the sound of my kids laughing in the kitchen, I remember the lesson she taught me. Betrayal might break trust, but patience delivers justice. That was my revenge. Quiet, complete, final. Weeks after she walked out with her suitcase, the house felt strangely balanced. At first, the silence was heavy. No humming in the kitchen, no footsteps down the hall late at night. But slowly, that silence became something else. It became peace. The kids adjusted quicker than I expected. My daughter, who had once clung to her mother's every word, now looked to me for answers. My son stopped asking where she'd gone after the first weekend. He had seen enough at that dinner table to understand more than his age should have required. Every so often she tried to break through the walls I had built. A text on a Sunday morning. I miss the kids. Can I come over for dinner? Another on a Tuesday night. Please, I just want to explain. I didn't block her, but I didn't reply either. I knew what would happen if I did. She'd twist her way back in, make promises she wouldn't keep, and I'd be back at square one. Instead, I let my lawyer handle the communication. Custody arrangements were formalized, visits supervised at first. She hated that part, of course, insisting she could be trusted. But the photos, the messages, and her repeated attempts to drain our accounts told a different story. The court didn't care about her excuses. They cared about stability. And stability was something I could give the kids that she couldn't. The first time she saw them under supervision, she tried to act like nothing had changed. She hugged them, kissed their cheeks, and promised, "Mommy just made a mistake, but I'll always love you." My daughter looked at her coldly and asked, "Were you lying when you said he was just a friend?" The question silenced the entire room. She broke into tears, reaching for my daughter's hand, but my little girl pulled away. That was the moment I knew the bond between them had cracked in ways no apology could mend. Meanwhile, her friend vanished the moment her access to money dried up. Word spread through mutual acquaintances. He blocked her number, moved on, didn't want the baggage. The same man she risked our family for didn't even stick around long enough to face the consequences. Alone, job slipping through her fingers, reputation shattered, she turned her desperation back toward me. One evening, I came home to find her sitting on the front steps, eyes red, hair unkempt, holding a wrinkled letter. "Please," she whispered when I approached. "Just read this. Give me one more chance." I took the letter, skimmed it. Page after page of apologies, excuses, begging for forgiveness, promises of change, pledges of love. At the bottom, she had written, "I don't want to lose everything we built. Please let me come home." I folded it, handed it back. "You already lost it," I said softly. "Not because of me, because of your choices." Her face crumpled. "You're heartless." "No," I replied, stepping past her into the house. "I'm done being blind." The door closed behind me, and for the first time in years I felt no guilt in shutting her out. Life after betrayal doesn't go back to what it was. It becomes something new. I poured myself into the kids, into rebuilding routines, into small joys that had been absent for too long. Movie nights in the living room. Saturday pancakes, stacked high with whipped cream. Board games that stretched long into the evening. They laughed more freely, their eyes lighter without the weight of watching their mother's lies unfold at the table. Months later, she tried again, this time through the kids. She sent them messages about how much she missed them, how she wanted us all together again. But they didn't answer. They showed me the texts instead. My son shrugged and said, "She made her choice." My daughter simply deleted the message. That was the true revenge. Not the frozen accounts, not the lawyer's filings, not even the photo that ended her story. It was seeing the kids recognize who had protected them, who had stayed steady when the world tilted. One night, as I tucked them in, my daughter whispered, "Dad, you're the strong one." And in that moment, I knew everything she had tried to steal from me, my dignity, my peace, my family, had been returned tenfold. Her story ended at the dinner table, but ours was just beginning again.